Welcome to Imperfect in an Uncertain World, resources for living with authenticity and purpose. Today, I'm going to invite you to get real. In fact, the title of this is Let's Get Real. I'm going to begin with a question. How many times have you found yourself judging, defending, or reacting to a certain situation, just to something that's happened in your life? Instead of judging or defending or clinging to what's going on, have you ever tried just to take a long, loving look at what's occurring in your life? Taking a long, loving look is one of my favorite moment checks. It encourages me to be in the moment. It takes me out of all of the uncertainty that caused me to react out of my imperfections and asks me to be with what is happening honestly and intentionally. So let's start with that phrase, taking a long, loving look at the real. What does that mean? For me, it asks me to practice the four nones. So it asks that I be non attached. That merely means that I'm not clinging to something so desperately because I want it, and I'm not pushing it away. I don't have an aversion to it. I'm able to be objective about it. I'm looking at it with new, fresh eyes. I'm not judgmental. I'm not saying, oh gosh, that's the most horrible thing that could ever happen, or wow, this is so exciting. That is the best thing that ever could happen to me. No, I'm looking at it from non-judgmental eyes. I'm looking at it very logically. I'm also not defensive about it. I'm practicing non-defensiveness. And so in that way, I'm not defending my behavior by saying, if only this had happened, I wouldn't have done that. No, I am looking at what is happening and what is unfolding in the world. I'm also nonviolent. And violence, again, doesn't just happen out there externally, it happens in my internal monologue. What am I saying about myself that really could be something that is violent? And how can I shift into a nonviolent stance where I am open, objective, and accepting? So, really, taking a long, loving look invites us to be in the moment objectively. So, how do we do this? I'm going to begin with some easy steps or take you through some easy steps. We're going to begin that long, loving look by asking, what's happening in my life? So, what you want to do is create a snapshot or a series of snapshots with the questions that I'm going to ask you. So, in light of what's going on with COVID 19, and if you're listening to this after the crisis has happened, feel free to interject other questions. Are you working from home? Are you laid off? Are you working in an essential but high risk environment? Do you live alone or do you live with others? Do you have any furry friends? Who do you come in contact with daily? Now I'm going to ask the next question is a tough one. How is my current life situation financially, familially, professionally, or communally impacting me? So this snapshot is going to be, I'm going to say, probably your support system. Um, and to know that when things drastically change, there's a major upheaval that really changes how you see your life and what's going on. So, all of these questions that I asked, when you answer them, you're going to get important elements that affect your life and what it looks like in the now. And that's the beginning of taking that long, loving look. You're going to really take a look at what's going on and answer those questions to get a picture, to get a full picture and an honest picture of what is going on. Next, name what helps you stay in the moment. Um, Another way of describing that is, what are your chief relaxers? Who's your support system? How do you get through your day if your routine is totally different, if you've had to discover or had to create a new routine? Then what I want you to do is identify at least one beneficial that impacts each of the four aspects of your being. And those four aspects are physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Now I'm going to get to the examples later once I go through this process, and we're going to actually put it in practice. So give me a second. Now, the next part of it is probably the harder part of it, but I like to begin easy. I like to focus on the benefits, the positives, so that you can get to some things that are impacting you in ways that don't necessarily feel good. So I want you to identify what stresses you. And again, make a list of the stressors that impact each of your aspects: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Be very specific in how they're impacting you. So it could be that those 8 hours that you spend with someone traditionally, now you don't have anyone to share ideas with or bounce ideas off and listen to. You're lacking a really important part of your community, is your professional community. If you think about it, you're at work at least 40 hours a week, and or if you are still in your work situation and it is deemed essential, how does the stress of being potentially exposed to COVID-19 impacting you? So now you get your two lists together, and I want you to look at those two lists together. Are you finding ways to reduce the stress in all four aspects of your being? And if not, identify what you might do to reduce a particular stress in a particular aspect. I'm going to recommend that you focus on simple solutions for relief. Now, in another video, I talk about needs versus wants. And so when you are creating that, buying $2,000 worth of clothing might not be the smartest thing right now for you to do. And that's more of a want versus a need. So when you're looking at ways to alleviate some stress and take that long, loving look, you really have to balance your needs versus your wants. So let's take a look at some examples. So physically, I walk, I practice Tai Chi on the days that I don't work in what has been deemed an essential business. These keep me active. They release built up tension, but I'm going to tell you, they're not just about the physical. When I do that, it also connects me in a different way mentally and emotionally and spiritually. And what you'll probably find when you are alleviating stress in a particular aspect, it benefits the other aspects as well. So mentally, I journal. I'm a big writer. I've written books. I write a weekly blog. So I'm a very prolific writer. I love it. But I'm also alert to when my monkey mind gets carried away. When I find myself clenching my teeth, I listen to what's going on in my monkey mind. And then I respond to my internal monologue by rescripting my reactions to the trigger into a response. So I can rescript the things that I'm saying that might be violent. I can rescript my entire body reaction to it by breathing deeply and consciously releasing the tension in my jaws. So emotionally, again, I journal, I Tai Chi, I listen to music, and depending upon what emotion is going on. If I'm feeling a little down, I'm going to listen to some upbeat music. If I am feeling a little frenetic, I find something that will smooth and even me out. The intent is to let go of the emotional stress with these activities and really replace it with joy. Spiritually, I find ways to interconnect or to connect with my inner spark, and to connect the inner spark or my divine spark with the sacred, however and wherever it presents itself. So it might be looking out my window and watching the joy of the leaping squirrels in the trees. It might be having a conversation with my son that really impacts me. It might be seeing the beauty in a watercolor wash that I have created for aura imaging. So it's for me, it might be the sip of a beverage. So for me, it's taking the joy in those small moments and seeing that my long loving look is not just about the uncertainty and the chaos that presents, but in the joy filled way that I respond to it. The intent is spiritually to celebrate the interconnectedness of all as I remind myself that I am not alone. So, the most important part of taking that long, loving look is to remember that it's easy to get stuck in the illusion that we craft about the real. We can feel helpless and without control as we ride a runaway train of uncertainty. Instead of remembering that no matter where we find ourselves, no matter what the situation we find ourselves in, we can always change our reactions to responses. That is, for me, is what taking a long, loving look is about. So let's get real. We can get real about what's happening when we take a long, loving look. We can acknowledge how we suffer, and then we can ask ourselves what we can do to alleviate the suffering in the moment. And that answer lies in how we practice self-compassion and how we share compassion with others. Taking a long loving look means engaging our entire being. And that look doesn't end with the examination that I led you through. It continues with our response in each moment that we show up as our best compassionate self for ourselves and others. I want to thank you for listening to this. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. There are more resources available on my webpage, intentandaction.com. That's intentandaction.com. If you need some help as a life coach, I'd be happy to work with you, whether it be a one session or 5 sessions, to really begin to focus on the things that matter in your life right now. No matter what, I want to invite you to take a long, loving look at your life as you live life to the fullest in these very uncertain times. Have a terrific day.